Okay, so I have just gotten back home from watching the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and I'm going to talk about it because I'm a massive Mario fan. This movie is possibly one of the things that I've been most excited about this year so far, and that actually is saying a lot considering I just came back from a holiday this couple days ago. Yesterday, actually, I came back, and the Mario movie was still my most exciting thing just in the last few weeks. Yeah. I have been so hyped for this movie, and I just watched it. I have gotten home just a few minutes ago. I did, have some time out, eating and stuff after the movie, but this is my impressions of it as close to having seen it as I can physically possibly be. And I haven't really seen many impressions either, other than, generally vague, this is, this is a good movie or this is not a good movie. So this is me just purely what I'm feeling about this movie. I'm going to just start off the first minute or so, just spoiler free, just in case anyone wants to hear my opinions without spoilers. I absolutely love this movie. It was everything I wanted it to be, and somehow more, I guess. That isn't to say that there weren't things that disappointed me, but some of those were based on my own, my mind and what I had potentially predicted would happen. And some of them I mentioned in my first trailer, or my first video, sorry, about the trailer. And some of these are things that not necessarily things that are worse about the movie as is. It was just cool things I think could have been really awesome to see, and I'll go into more detail afterwards. But overall, I loved this movie. It was a fun ride the entire time. The characters were all pretty much spot on. Genuinely, every character was great, I think. And there were just so many surprises, so many references packed in, and I'm probably in the spoiler section of this video going to be talking about so many of these references because, oh my god, they were glorious. But yeah, so my overall thoughts are, I loved this film. I can see what a lot of people are saying about the story being weaker, and I think that if you're not a Mario fan, this isn't going to be the movie for you. I don't think it necessarily holds up as a, as well just as a movie, standalone from what it's based on. But if you're a Mario fan, there is nothing to dislike here, I don't think, or almost nothing to dislike. It is genuinely, I don't think I could have hoped for it to be anything other than what it ended up being. So that's the kind of spoilery bit, or spoiler-free bit out of the way. Now, here's my thoughts in more detail. I was really, really happy with a lot of what they did in terms of, I guess, the characters in general. So every character I think was really well done. I mean, a lot of people have already talked about Bowser, who, Bowser was everything, in fact, he's not even everything you would have expected. Jack Black really brought a charm and a real style, a classiness to the character. I think the addition of the musical elements, the fact that he played the piano and he wrote a song for Peach was a great little thing to add. I think it actually really works with Bowser, because Bowser has always not necessarily been a musical character to me, but in my head I always associate him very strongly with metal music and this high opera kind of style, and it makes sense that that's actually a part of his personality rather than just something that acts as the theme for his music. He does feel very metal and very dramatic as well, and I think it was great to add that in. I will say actually one very specific reference that I absolutely adored was that they used the music for Bowser's Fury, just not even like a cover of the music, they just straight up used the music from Bowser's Fury in the section where he's addressing his subjects. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that is excellent, because they're drawing from more than just the old games. They're drawing from every element of this franchise. Another thing, it's you know, recent stuff. Another thing that's really recent that they referenced was in the Mario Kart, you know, the Mario Kart scene. Some of the Kongs use banana cannons, you know, as, you know, I guess items in Mario Kart, which isn't something that's in a mainline. Well, I mean, depends on how you define tour, but it's not in a console Mario Kart game, but it is an item in Mario Kart Tour, and I can only imagine that the banana cannons that they've used there are a reference to that. And there's so many references. I'm gonna go on tangents just talking about these references, because there's just so many of them, and there's so many of them are so good. But yeah, Bowser was great. Peach was pretty good. I'm not like massively blown away by her, but she was fun. She was fun, and I think actually I like how they used the power-ups with her. So obviously we'd already seen in the trailer she used the fire flower, but I also really liked how they introduced the ice flower for her. And even, I mean, that was one thing I was very happy about, was that there were power-ups, not a massive amount, but there were power-ups that we saw in the film that we didn't see in trailers. And it was mainly, I guess we saw the mini mushroom a couple of times, we saw the ice flower used by Peach, and we also saw, we knew that the Starman, or Superstar as they called it, was in the film, but we didn't know that it was, or we hadn't seen it being used by Mario and Luigi. I'm glad that we saw some transformations that weren't in trailers. And yeah, so Peach, she was an enjoyable character. Not my favourite character in the film, I wouldn't say, but she was great for what she was, and it didn't really matter that she didn't have as much of the you know, the daintiness that we associate with Peach, because I don't think it would necessarily have improved her character a lot, really. I think what they went with worked for the film, and I think it worked as it was. Toad was a little bit anonymous. He didn't really do much, but he was funny, and he was always fun. I think overall, I actually find it actually weird that they never really refer to him as Toad. Oh, and I think that this is the dilemma that they really came to when you're including Toad, because it's the name of the character and the name of the species. They don't actually give Toad a name. They don't refer to him as Toad. The closest we get is Peach saying, "A Toad that's willing to protect me," but that isn't her saying that his name is Toad. So it's a bit, obviously his name is Toad, but it's just a bit. I mean, we all know what my my opinions on Toad are at this point. If you haven't seen my video on who is Toad, I'd recommend watching that, because my musings here might not make much sense otherwise. But it was just a bit weird, of a weird moment, and just weird. They never really refer to him as Toad, and it makes sense why, but it's still a bit weird. It would have been good if, like, at some point, Peach had like anointed him Captain Toad. And I know, as I have said before, Toad and Captain Toad aren't the same character, but Toad in the Mario movie takes a lot of design elements from Captain Toad. So I think it would have probably been good to refer to him as Captain Toad at some point in the movie, just so that, you know, he actually has a name and isn't just a Toad. You know what I'm saying? But he was a great character overall. As I say, wasn't really very involved, but he had some really funny moments. And granted, we'd seen most of those already, but he was still a joy. Luigi also got a little bit sidelined, I'd say, but still, again, great character. You know, he had a little bit of an arc. It wasn't massively built upon. He just kind of got courage towards the end. but you know, he was still he was still an enjoyable character. Him in, you know, in the cages with the Penguin King and Luma Lee was, you know, we'd seen a lot of the good stuff from that already, but it was still greatly enjoyable. Luma Lee was just bizarrely just a bit bizarre, but again, with that, we don't. Luma Lee was left very open. Luma Lee was just kind of there, and it's the only real example of something that was just kind of there with no explanation and nothing happened. And I can only imagine that they did this deliberately to sequel bait, because I mean, we know Luma Lee is here now. That's a Luma, and it's not as if they were trying to make out as if this wasn't a Luma. They used the Luma sound effect. We know that that's Luma Lee. He's even, or she, I can't actually remember if Luma Lee is a male or a female, but they're even referred to in the credits as Luma Lee. We know that that's Luma Lee, but we don't know why Luma Lee's there. And I can only imagine that the next film is probably going to focus on well, Luma Lee and, you know, Mario and friends helping Luma Lee find their mama, who is Rosalina, obviously. So yeah, Luma Lee was definitely a welcome addition, but just a bit weird how open they left that. But yeah, in terms of Luigi, he had his own character arc, and it was pretty good. I'm glad that we got to see him, you know, kicking some Koopa butt towards the end. Why did I just say Koopa butt? That was pretty cringe, not gonna lie. But we got to see him, you know, getting into the fray at the end, although I do wish we'd seen a little bit more beforehand, and I do also wish that he had been given an opportunity to use more power-ups than just the superstar, because I think seeing some Luigi power-ups would have been a lot of fun. But overall, yeah, Luigi was great. I did like the flashback with Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. That was, yeah, it was just great. Seeing the designs in the movie, you know, that was great. So many references, so many little things. Donkey Kong was great. Actually, Donkey Kong was one of the highlights for me, because he did have not necessarily an arc that was super defined, but you could tell, you know, what they were trying to do with him, and throughout the movie, you know, he became a little less bullheaded, although he was still quite bullheaded the entire way through, but he learnt to kind of appreciate Mario a little more, and I quite enjoyed Donkey Kong. He was funny, he was just always great to watch, and so was Cranky Kong, actually. Cranky Kong was great. I loved that they actually did, you know, refer to Diddy Kong by name instead of, you know, I don't know if that had been shown in the trailer already, but I liked that they did that they, you know, they didn't just make it a background element. They didn't make him and Dixie and Chunky a background element and not actually refer to him. No, they were, you know, that's Diddy Kong. We're gonna make sure that we draw attention to that, and that was great. But yeah, overall, Donkey Kong was great. I liked his dynamic with Mario. That was great. They really bounced off each other. Obviously, they were in conflict most of the film, but they bounced off each other quite well in that, I think. And Kamek was great as well. Kamek was... I'd actually kind of almost expected Kamek to be kind of a twist villain at the end. It just kind of seemed... A few shots just kind of seemed to suggest it, but no. Kamek was just... Yeah, pretty much exactly what you expect from Kamek, but no, still great. And then there was also the blue shell. I'm going to be honest, one of the things I was disappointed in was I had heard a theory that potentially the blue shell Koopa was actually Foreman Spike. And that maybe Foreman Spike had followed the brothers into the Mushroom Kingdom, and Kamek had turned him into a Koopa, and that was obviously the blue shell Koopa, which would have been great because it would have meant that he then could play a role as kind of a secondary antagonist, which would have been a lot of fun, and it would make sense because Spike, blue shells have spikes, it's perfect. But I will also say that I actually really liked how they used the blue shell. It wasn't a massive role, but you know, they had him there. He was just a Cooper General. They had him there. They had, you know, they made sure that he was involved. But he played the role perfectly as the blue shell, because, you know, they included him in the Mario Kart section most prominently, and not only was he the most formidable force there, they actually played into the idea of him being a blue shell, and they used the Mario Kart Wii and Double Dash, and DS design for the blue shell, the wing design, which is excellent. They actually made him do the swirly thing above Donkey Kong's head, and then, you know, slam down to explode. One thing I can't actually remember was if Donkey Kong was ahead of Peach at the time when he got hit by the blue shell. I don't think he was. That is a little bit of a missed opportunity, I think. But I also get that it wouldn't necessarily have worked as well, considering Peach was meant to, you know, be on the other side of the bridge when the explosion was there. But in general, I was really happy with how they, you know, how they handled the blue shell. It was a great role, really. Just a really fun thing to do, to, you know, make the most notorious item in Mario Kart into a character, but who is still actually a blue shell. I actually think that they might have actually referred to before he did his kind of kamikaze attack. I think he actually referred to himself as a blue shell. If that's true, that is, I believe, the first ever official, you know, use or naming of the blue shell as a blue shell. Officially, it's always known as a spiny shell. But no, in the movie, I'm fairly sure, I'm trying to remember, but I'm fairly sure he actually said blue shell. Which is excellent, because this isn't something that is, you know, clean and sanitized to be exactly what Nintendo wants it to be. This film is something that is made specifically to be appreciated by the fans, the people who are going to be watching the movie. You know, the references are all geared towards that, and that is excellent. I will say, while I remember it, one thing that I think was a missed opportunity was not including Toadsworth. They had these kind of Toad Council members, I guess they were kind of. The idea that they didn't use Toadsworth in that is just a bit weird to me. But I guess, you know, what you're going to do. You know, they're not going to get everything in. There's going to be things that they won't quite get right. So at this point, I think I've talked about every major character other than Mario. And honestly, the debate throughout the entire time has been whether Chris Pratt was right for this role. And I am very glad that over the last month or two, people have really been coming around to him and his voice in this film, because the more we've seen, the more convincing it became. He was really doing his best here, and he was doing a good job. And in the film, he absolutely sells it for me. Chris Pratt as Mario was absolutely an excellent choice. And he, like, when I was listening to it, when I was watching the film, I was able to completely forget that it was Chris Pratt. Not that it still doesn't sound like Chris Pratt. Obviously it's his voice, but even though it is his voice, it sounds like Mario. I don't know how else to explain it, but his performance really does sound like Mario. You know, he got that, you know, that Brooklyn accent in there, and he had that, for most of it, he had that higher tone to his voice, which is something that we associate with Mario. He has quite a high, you know, a high voice. And I think he did an excellent job with it, and he did feel like Mario, and I am so happy with that, because that is the one thing in the Mario movie, the one thing you need to get right is Mario. And yeah, I can't really fault Chris Pratt at all in this. Okay, so this is kind of that's my thoughts on the main cast. The story itself was quite basic. I have said that I do think that I agree with people who are rating it lower, you know, critics who are rating it lower on the basis that it has a basic story. It does. It's not groundbreaking. But it felt like everything that it needed to be. Because I am I am incredibly passionate about the fact that when you're adapting something, you need to adapt it loyally. And this can be in regards to anything, really. I won't go too much into it, but I have opinions on, for example, How to Train Your Dragon that not a lot of people have. Mainly because of the fact that I was a fan of the How to Train Your Dragons books when I was younger. And I was incredibly excited about finding out that there was a film of How to Train Your Dragon, only to find out that the film that they made was nothing like the books. I'm going to make a video about this someday, because when I say that, people always say, oh yeah, I have had a very similar thing about that with The Hunger Games or Harry Potter, or even something like The Hobbit. And I hear people say that, and it baffles me that they're even making those comparisons, because what I'm talking about here with How to Train Your Dragon is so much worse than anything that anyone can really level at any other adaptation that they bring up. It's seriously, I'll make this video one day and you'll see just how bad it is as an adaptation. Not disparaging it as film, but as an adaptation, absolutely sinful. I'm very passionate about the idea that when you're adapting something, you've got to do it loyally, because if you're not going to try and actually stick to the source material, what's the point? The Mario movie is a little different in the fact that it's not literally a retelling of something that has been written in the book, or even something that's, you know, in a video game, like maybe something like, I haven't seen it, but The Last of Us might be, which is, you know, retelling that story. It's not like that. This is essentially an alternate origin story. But when you're adapting something like this, you want to get the iconography and the general characters and the, you know, the idea of the story pretty spot on. That's what you want to get right. And this movie does it so well. Like, as I've said, the only real thing that I can criticize in terms of staying loyal to the source material is the fact that they use, you know, they have Elder Toads, but not Toadsworth. Other than that, it is point perfect. Like, there are so many cool references. You know, for example, the fact that you have Pauline as, you know, the mayor of New York. Obviously, she is the mayor of New Donk City, but in this kind of Mario world, New Donk City presumably doesn't exist or isn't in, you know, the same place. But Pauline being the mayor of New York is perfect. King Bob-omb being in the film. Oh, what an excellent... I know he's been in Mario Kart Tour recently, but he's not a main... Oh, and Mario Golf. But he's not a mainstay by any means. And yet, here he is. He's in the film. And even though it seemed like it was just going to be a background reference, no, he actually kind of plays a small role in the final battle. King Boo's also there as well. You know, he doesn't play any role, but he is there at the wedding. Things like Bowser's wedding hat. Oh god, I mean, I love top hats. I discussed that in my last video about Professor Layton. I love top hats. I love the fact that they have used the wedding hat from Mario Odyssey. That's excellent. And you've also got things like the Crazy Cap hat, the Crazy Cap shop. Brilliant. I love that they've referenced that. I can genuinely go on for ages about all of the references here, and I'm probably going to, I'm going to be honest. I already talked about the Bowser's Fury music. The music in general was excellent. The way that they the way that they use so many of these musical tracks from the games, and in a lot of cases, you know, they did do remixes of them, or not remixes, sorry, but they did do new versions of them. And there was some pop soundtrack in there. Honestly, it didn't feel too offensive. Mostly it fit fairly well. And also Mr. Blue Sky is just my favourite song ever, so I'm happy to see that in any film, if I'm being honest. The dry bones, the swoops or swoopers, depending on what game they're in, but the bats, you know, the Bramblin, oh god, I mean, it's not exactly as if the Bramblin is an obscure enemy. But it's not a massively popular one either. It's one that New Super Mario Bros. Fans love. And if you haven't played that game, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I believe it was, if you haven't played that game, you probably don't know what it is. But they included it in here. The Biddy Buds as well, they're in there. The Shy Guy and the Sniffit as well. And they gave the Shy Guys that, you know, the actual Shy Guy voice. Oh, all of these little things. And oh, one of my favourite ones that I spotted was in when Mario and Luigi go underground, when they're trying to solve that leak. And obviously you've got, you know, the Mario sprite, the Mario's head sprite, you know, as the hole in the wall that they made. But one thing that I almost missed was that it says, it had a sign that says level 1 to 2 or something like that, because level 1, 2, which is the underground level in, you know, Super Mario Brothers. But not just that, that's where the warp zone is, and that is the place where Mario and Luigi are taken to the Mushroom Kingdom through the pipe. So it just works so well as a layered reference, and I absolutely, when I saw that, I was just like, this is excellent. Like, the way, I mean, there's other references, a lot of them we saw in the trailers, but that, you know, that reference there just got me. Oh, I was so happy with that one. You also had the Unagi, the eel from Mario 64 and then later Odyssey. And, you know, I like that it didn't really play a massive role in the plot. But it was pretty cool to see it there. It was a good place to kind of, you know, separate Mario and Donkey Kong from the action. It was cool also seeing the Mario and Donkey Kong, you know, riding the rocket barrel as well, because not a reference to a Mario game, but to a Donkey Kong game, which I mean, I've only really played Tropical Freeze, but they have the you know, the rocket barrels in that, and that was a great reference as well. Everything Mario Kart related was excellent, you know. Mario jumping on the Koopas to turn them into blue shells and then throwing them at the enemies. The fact that they actually had the kind of blonde monkey eat a banana, throw the banana down, and then someone slipped on it and, you know, went flying into a building and crashing out. Every single reference, every single little thing, it's just like barely a frame goes past where there isn't a reference. The action was pretty good as well, you know, and I've already talked about the power-ups. I think we'd already seen a lot of the best power-ups, but actually, having said that, we hadn't seen the cat suit really in use, and they really did well with that. Cat suit versus Donkey Kong was a great action scene. I liked. I've already said I really liked the use of the ice flower by Peach. That was great. There was the mini mushroom was great for, you know, the comedic purpose. And I actually quite liked the fact that they stuck to the rules of the world, and the mini mushroom, you know, when Mario got hurt, the mini mushroom you know, in New Super Mario Bros. If you have a mini mushroom, you still die when you get hit. But in this world, the mushroom power up, you know, wears off after you get hurt. So they've stuck with that rule, which I think was quite a clever way of handling it. The Tanuki, the way they use the Tanuki at the end, where he actually does the tailspin. Again, one potential nitpick is the fact that they did call it a raccoon suit when that is the Tanuki suit, but frankly, that's small bananas, really. You know, that's a tiny complaint to have, really, considering the raccoon suit and Tanuki suit are so similar anyway. So, oh, and obviously there's the cape. It wasn't used as a power-up, but they did reference the cape, and I'm a massive Super Mario World fan, so I was really happy with that reference. And the Superstar was used so well as well. I love one of my favourite parts. They did have a lot of great bits of combat that reference something, like in the Donkey Kong versus Mario scene, where Mario goes to do his forward air from Smash, which I mean, obviously he doesn't land it, but it's great to have that reference in there. But one of the best ones, and one of the probably most obvious ones, is Mario and Luigi spinning Bowser around by the tail and throwing him, which obviously is a reference to the Super Mario 64 boss battle, which, again, absolutely killer reference. I mean, it's so obvious, but it had to happen, you know. And yeah, I will say, one of my things about, as I've said, there were things that I was disappointed didn't happen. One of them was a post-credit scene, which I'll get onto in a minute, but I will say that one of my most disappointing things was that Mario and Luigi beat Bowser using the Superstar. Because as much as it's a pretty cool climax, I think it does actually kind of go against the grain of what, you know, how Mario usually works. Because while, you know, you never see Mario facing Bowser using the star, ever, or any invincible power-up, unless, you know, it's after them died many times, like with the White Tanuki, for example. But you don't tend to see it, and that's actually because of the fact that Mario versus Bowser is often at its best when it's Mario versus Bowser. Just straight up those two together. You know, no power-ups, no gimmicks, it's just a straight fight to the death between the two of them. And I also think that it would have been nice to emphasize the fact that Mario is super as he is. He doesn't need this godly power, you know, that makes him invincible. I think that would have been a nice point to emphasize. I get why they did make these the star, how they beat Bowser, and it was nice to see him and Luigi both being able to do it. But also, I think it would have probably been better if Mario, and maybe even Luigi as well, had gone up against Bowser in, you know, one-on-one. Or one of my ideas was that they would replicate the idea of Mario cutting, you know, using an axe to cut a bridge down, and dunking Bowser in lava, to reference the first games, because you can kind of frame that as it's Mario being resourceful, or using his ingenuity, and I think that would have been a better way to end it. But you can't really complain. It was still a pretty cool scene. I would have rather they hadn't done it, but it was still pretty cool, and I'm not going to say it was bad at all. One of the other things I am quite disappointed with is that Bowser doesn't use any power-ups. It would have been cool to see, like, Ice Bowser, or, you know, when we've already seen Meowser in the past in Mario games. That would have been pretty cool to see. Again, I don't think necessarily that as the form that he's in when he's fighting Mario and Luigi for the final time, but it would have still been cool to see how they would handle, or how Bowser could use different power-ups. And, you know, in general, I think it would have been cool just to see different characters using different power-ups. Luigi didn't use any power-ups. Would have been cool to see that. Peach did use power-ups. Toad didn't use any power-ups. again, I mean, there's only so much, you know, you can fit into one movie, and it's so chock-a-block with references and cool stuff anyway. I can't be too unhappy with it, but it would have been cool, at the very least, to see Bowser using a power-up. I think, actually, Ice Bowser would have been excellent. They could even have given him that, what is it, Dark Bowser coloration? With, you know, the blue and black colours. So, potential missed opportunity, but not a disaster. It was still an excellent film, with or without that. Can you tell I love this film? I really love this film. Like, I can see the flaws, but as a fan of Mario, and someone who's been a fan of Mario my entire life, my first video games that I ever played were Mario games. I have been playing Mario games for so long. I've played every single Mario game at least a little bit, as in mainline Mario games, obviously. And I've played so many of the spin-offs as well. And just seeing the level of love and care that was put into this film, and the level of references. Like, references don't necessarily make a good movie, but it sure as hell makes it a fun time for people who get the references. And I would say it's not a bad film without the references. It's a basic plot, and it's not an excellent film without the references, but it's still a solid film with the references, I think. Pacing is a little bit quick, but other than that, it's pretty great. But with the references, it becomes something so much more special. And I am absolutely watching this film again many times, because I love this film. I love this film, and it's everything I wanted it to be, and potentially more. And if I don't stop now, I think I'm probably going to go on another tangent about, you know, how cool it was that Donkey Kong got plenty of opportunities to throw barrels, you know, or, oh god, no, I'm gonna stop now, because I don't think you guys need to listen to me rambling forever about this film and about all of the references. Point is, it's so good for someone who loves Mario. And you'll never get, you know, you'll never get bored of seeing the references, I don't think. So yeah, if you're a Mario fan who has somehow not seen this film, and also for some reason went deep into the spoiler well of this film, you know, as in this spoiler section of my video, then I guess go and see it. Otherwise, I hope at least some people may have seen some references that they didn't see. I'd love to hear some more references that I completely missed, because there's so many. I just want to hear them all. I just want to hear them all. Oh god, I forgot to talk about the post-credit scene. Yeah, flipping Yoshi egg hatching. I mean, we knew that there was going to be a Yoshi egg at some point, because you know, we had seen it in the trailer, not the trailer, sorry, we'd seen it in the poster. But the Yoshi egg hatching at the end is great, because we know that Yoshi's going to be in the next one now. I'm still hoping for Alan Tudyk to be Yoshi. I know it's probably not going to happen, but that's my hope, that's my dream. Let me have it, okay? But it's so great to know that we're going to get Yoshi and probably Rosalina. And I would imagine we're probably going to get a new villain as well, who's going to, you know, team up with Bowser, help break him out. I don't think it would be like Wart or Tatanga. Definitely not Wart, considering Shy Guys are originally minions of Wart, and they're now making them Bowser minions, and I doubt it would be Tatanga either. Because we'll probably get Tatanga in the movie that has Daisy, and we're probably getting Rosalina next. So I'm guessing that we'll probably get Wario next. He's probably going to be some sort of Mario copycat, and he tries to break Bowser out or something like that. And, you know, he'll be the new person on Mario's on Bowser's side, and Yoshi will be the new person on Mario's side. And Rosalina will probably be the person that they're trying to save, essentially. The damsel, I guess. But yeah, so that was my thoughts on the Super Mario Brothers movie. I mean, we don't have confirmation of a second film yet, but I'm still incredibly excited for the second one. And I'm just feeling very content. I'm feeling very happy. I've seen the film, I've got posters, yeah, I'm happy. I think it has all happened. This film has come out and it's all everything I wanted it to be from a Super Mario Bros. Film, and it looks like it's tracking really well for the box office. So happy days, eh? Okay, that's this video over. Goodbye.